My apologies if you've seen today's video from me already. I had posted it on this channel and on a channel that I had going before this one. This particular episode was the last episode of the first channel. Um, and if you stick around for it, you'll see it's very personally revealing. It was recorded at 4:30 in the morning in the middle of some serious heartbreak. Um, and I had taken down my original content because of the personal nature of it, and also because I wade into some pretty controversial waters. But I'm going to re-release that content and try to, just bring together everything I've done, under one uh, channel name. So if you stick around, I think you'll see why. Um, I might have put things up and taken them down. Um, but I'm being vulnerable here, sharing my personal pain. This was recorded at 4:30 in the morning in the midst of some serious heartbreak. Um, and I think the value in that, um, I'm trying to do philosophy, I'm trying to do culture, I'm trying to do, politics. But as people go on YouTube and they try to shift away from, what's being called mainstream media, legacy media here, Jordan Peterson and others use that title. I just find that people are, making the same mistakes that just made mainstream media divisive and uh, led people not to trust it. Um, because it's all about what's wrong with the other side, and it's never about what's wrong with us. And there's never any vulnerability. I don't want to say never. The internet obviously is a huge place. But anyways, I'm just sharing this and being vulnerable as a statement, I guess. Taking a risk, conducting an experiment to say, you know, this is what it feels like on the inside for me. Maybe this is what it feels like on the inside for you. Maybe if we were, more open and more vulnerable with ourselves, more raw, less polished, something more like the truth might come through. This is going to be the last episode. This is really just an apology to the people who are close to me that have been listening to my podcast thus far. I want to say I really appreciate the support. Um, I appreciate the attention, but this way that I have of looking at the world, I think that it's legit, but on a personal level, it's a very difficult burden to carry because basically my specialty is all those things that are true that are not supposed to be true. And so maybe those things just die with me. Being able to get that first episode out. So if all that this channel has is two episodes and there's the first episode and there's this one, just being able to get that full episode out in one take is kind of a personal miracle. It's insane to me to have carried something like that for that long and kept a secret like that where I didn't even put one word on that day for 23 years, and then to put it out there for anybody who wants to see it. There's information in there that could have gotten me killed back in the day. So, I really do want to share my information, but I don't know how to do that in a way that's safe, I guess. And I guess there's just a lot at risk. And so, without going down all these different rabbit holes, I just want to tell a really sad story. I am in the midst of heartbreak. That's not actually the sad story. I mean, it's sad, but and it's really caught me off guard because I just didn't see it coming. It's a woman that I know from walking my dog. She has a dog. We know each other from the park, and we've had really good conversations over the last 2 years, but it's stayed, sort of strictly acquaintances. But I always thought in the back of my head, like, she's kind of perfect for me, and hope that I was kind of perfect for her. Um, and on her request, we spent some time recently, went on a couple of day-long hikes and had, a really good time together. And I thought that was leading somewhere, and it didn't. Um, and that put me into a tailspin and sent me right into my shadow. And looking at the world through my shadow is awful and intoxicating at the same time. And it's hard not to feel like there's a lot of important information there to share, but maybe it's also stuff that everybody knows and there's a reason why they don't speak it. And so when I could tell that something had changed, you know how it is. There's a vibe that's there and then it switches up and you're not sure why, but okay. I was looking for something to watch on my streaming services and I have PBS documentaries. So they had a documentary called A Flood in the Desert, and it's about the St. Francis Dam disaster of 1928 here in Southern California. So if you ask a Angelino if they've heard of Mulholland Drive, everybody has. It's a major road in Los Angeles. If you ask them who Mulholland was, very few people will know. He was a city engineer responsible for the original aqueduct that brings water from the Sierras to Los Angeles. It's 200 miles. In the late teens, early 20s, Los Angeles was experiencing, you know, like exponential population growth, and was running out of water, and so they put in this 200-mile aqueduct, which was, a modern miracle. Um, and it transformed Los Angeles. But as is the case, as we know in LA, cyclical drought, and so they needed to build a reservoir to hold up, to dam up the water so that when there was a drought year, they had something to draw on. And so they built the St. Francis Dam. Uh, and the long and the short of it is that, once the dam got full, it's about 20, 30 miles outside of LA, just outside of Santa Clarita, off the 5 freeway. Um, the dam broke, and it's the second largest loss of life in California history and the biggest man-made disaster. It could be one of the biggest man-made disasters in U.S. history. Um, Almost 500 people were killed. It could be double that just because I think they're just counting the bodies that they found. So the dam breaks at um, just outside of Santa Clarita, and a 150-foot wall of water, something like 12 billion gallons, flows down the Santa Clarita River Valley, 54 miles out to sea at Ventura Beach. The whole thing took like 4 hours to play out. Went through towns like Santa Paula and Fillmore, um, and just swept people away in their sleep. So I watched this documentary, um, and it occurred to me that, you know, the remains of the dam are probably still out there. And it's up in the Angeles forest where I spend a lot of my time in the winter. So the next day I Googled it and got the dog in the car. And we went out and found it. And there there is a monument. So they had a hydroelectric power station that was right next to the dam, that when the dam burst, excuse me, and the power station was completely wiped away. I mean, like disappeared. And so they have a power station that they built afterwards on that same spot. And if you go up to that power station, there's a plaque and there's a chunk of the dam with a bronze plaque on it that'll tell you a bit of the story. But there's not really much else. I'd actually been by years before, and you drive by, you have no idea. And so there's a washed out road that you can walk that takes you back to the dam site. And so I'm walking down that road and I'm looking for the dam. And then I get to a point where the river crosses over the road and it's all forest. And we had a pretty good rainy winter. And so you couldn't go any further. And I didn't, I was still looking for the dam. And so I turn around and walking back. And then I see the way they built the dam was like with steps. So it was like 15 feet thick on the top and 150 feet thick on the bottom with graduated steps all the way down. Um, and then what I see is, three of those steps like teeth in a saw, sort of pointing up towards the sky. And then I'm like, oh, wow. I've been, walked about a mile back down this road, and I've been walking past chunks of the dam the entire time. And then I'm finding myself standing, on what you could call hallowed ground. You know, I They said in the documentary that, almost like the day after the disaster, people were driving out from LA to gawk. They were driving out to take pictures and, um, obviously in really poor taste. It's kind of how my mind works, where, I'm aware of, is that me? Am I being a gawker? Is that what I'm doing? Is this, some sort of sick pleasure? But also it's history, and you go and there's nobody there, and there's this cement, this rubble, these remains of this really awful event. Um, but there's also like an awe. It's a feeling of awe. Um, as I'm walking back then to the car, I'm seeing, huge chunks of concrete. These things are like, 100,000 tons or something. Um, and they were swept, almost a mile away from the dam site. And the river, the valley, really takes a curve at one point. And so, it's 100 feet up on both sides. And I'm just imagining what it would be like to be standing there and to look up and you see this 100-foot wall of water coming at you. So there's all that wrapped up in it. And then, I get in my car, and then you can, like, as you're driving back down to Santa Clarita, you're just sort of driving along what the route the wave would have taken. And so, as difficult as the day was that I shared in episode one, the worst day of my life happened August 5th, 2016. I had three cats at the time and my dog. And um, the cats had started out being indoor cats, but um, had to end up becoming outdoor cats for various reasons. And they had gotten fleas. They'd spend the night in the basement and the days in the backyard. And I had been late on the flea treatment. It was August, and they had infested the basement with fleas. And so I had a guy come to spray in the basement, but I didn't want them to be in the basement with the insecticide until it had worn off. And so I had them in the backyard, figuring while they're spending the days in the backyard, they can spend a couple of nights as well and they'll be okay. And so I woke up the morning of August 5th early. It was 6:30 in the morning. My dog woke me up. And so I went to check on the cats, and Ruby and Jojo came out to me right away. And my favorite, Thor, who was just one of those magical beings that comes to Earth in the form of a cat sometimes, who I loved in this way that, like, I always craved him. Like, I couldn't get enough of him, and he couldn't get enough of me. And he didn't come immediately. And so, fortunately, I went searching for him instead of just assuming that he had jumped the fence and he would come back. And when I went looking for him, what I found was his hind paw, and I can't for the life of me remember if it was his right or left, was wedged in between two planks of the fence. It's the way the fence is built, it comes together, but they notch the top, and it actually really creates kind of this trap. And they're all over Southern California. It's just a style of fence. And I saw his foot sticking out, and immediately looked over the fence, and there he was, hanging from his broken leg. And I swear he let out a meow when he saw me see him. And it was such disappointment. It was such defeat. He was a big guy. He's 17 pounds. He had this long tail like a flagpole. He was all black, big ears. I think maybe he was chasing another cat out of the yard. And so I look over, and there he is. How long he was hanging by his broken leg, I have no idea. So I went and got a ladder as fast as I could and got up on it and got him by the scruff and pulled the plank out and rushed him to the emergency vet. And I had to have him put down. And so, when I think of the St. Francis Dam disaster, and I stand there, I've been back now, twice, so a total of 3 times. And I'm imagining that wall of water. I remember Thor, and then I think about the people and the animals that wave consumed. There were workers' cottages there as part of the, grounds of the power plant. It was like 118 water and power employees and their families that, just would have gotten, I mean, it would have just exploded the walls and just, you know, at, hopefully they just die instantly. Hopefully they just, die in their sleep. With that horror of being awoken to absolute chaos and confusion, we wouldn't have known there was no up or down. It would have just been, you know, and every being that this wave touches, I have to remember is a Thor. And I don't even know if I'm supposed to do this, if it's even appropriate to try to get that close to suffering, because it comes at us every day, right? We can't get away from it. It comes to us in our phones. It comes to us in the news. It comes to us in the newspaper every day. Thor is happening every day. And so whatever awe I feel when I'm standing there and I'm thinking, my God, 100-foot, 150-foot wave of water that was like a mile deep at least. It's that tenderness, it's that heartbreak, it's all those little girls and boys, mothers that survived but lost their children, children that survived but lost their mothers. And it's happening, yeah, all the time. So we have to put glass in between us and it, and maybe the gawker in us is part of that protection mechanism. So I'm just going to finish with a poem here that's about Thor. And see if, there we go. So it's called The Hermit Crab. It's a little long, but it's a poem, so it's short. So here it is, The Hermit Crab. I am a hypnotist, it's true. I have several pieces of paper that say so. I know what you want it to be, but it's not that. I keep trying to tell people what it is, but no one will listen that long. I have been a student, a dishwasher, a receptionist, a world traveler, a house painter, a pizza delivery driver, a box packer, a floor sweeper, a shut-in, a massage therapist, a laborer, a bartender, a shoe salesman, and a waiter for by far the longest of these. I have tried my hand at astrology, novel writing, activism, Buddhism, libertarianism, journalism, philosophy, film, yoga, sociology, op-ed writing, law, and I even walked into a communist bookstore once. I have lost track of lovers, been addicted to sugar, caffeine, nicotine, cocaine, and alcohol. I was a boyfriend once to someone for less than a year and have been in love with the same woman for more than 2 decades. I have held my best friend's hand in the cab of his truck, both of us flush with ecstasy while the sweat of our palms became one. I have felt addiction cause bulbs to burn out, never to flash on again. I have listened to music on 11 until my ears pop, ring, and whistle. I have masturbated until my groin is raw and aggrieved and still. The longing will not end. I have known white-hot guilt. I have known love expand. I have known a perfect autumn day. And once, I had a cat who would sleep by my side all night like a child. I have moved from shell to shell, apartment to apartment, and sometimes have caught a glimpse of that creature I am in between. But the crab has always tried to grasp with its inarticulate claws, and it has run away. I have had 2 nervous breakdowns, both while selling shoes, and people say, "You're a hypnotist, heal yourself." But it's not like that, I say. I know how you want it to be. Snap of the fingers and you'll do as I direct. But nature won't be tricked for long. She has a way of extracting her lessons. So here I am, age 45, with a given roof over my head, a dog and 2 cats. I had 3, but my favorite, the one who reminded me of the cat I once had who slept by my side all night like a child, died recently. He had a horrible accident and I had to have him put to sleep. There is something there I cannot touch, I cannot make anything of, that makes me grab my skull and push in on my brain with my palms like a vice, that makes me want to run and hop like I'm on fire, that broke my heart the moment I found him in this permanent way, and made me want to weep like a widow for anyone who has ever lost anything. I held him in my arms and he defecated on my shirt because of the pain. I kept saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry because of the pain and because I knew I had no money for the surgery. And I kept saying, I love you. And maybe this is why we can suffer. I was there as they inserted the drugs, and I stroked his head as his life passed swiftly. And I stayed until his eyes glazed over and left and returned again, kissing his forehead and not believing. I have a hard time weeping, and now there's this trickle of poems. When I was a young man, I wanted experience and then to write, but I do not want this. I do not want this for me. I do not want this for you. Okay, so this may or may not be the last episode. I go back and forth on these things, but I'll just leave it at that for now. Thanks for watching.